Good morning. My name is Steve Reed, and welcome to Mental Health Monday. I'm a pastor at H2O Church in downtown Orlando and also a mental health counselor. And this is a time when we take bite-sized pieces of mental, emotional, and spiritual health and seek to grow in our awareness, because awareness gives room for movement, and movement can lead to freedom. And it is for freedom that Christ set us free. We are also being joined this morning by a gecko, and he may or may not join us the whole time. We'll have to see. So, one of the things that I was thinking about is different ways that we can allow our hearts to be calm, our hearts to be at peace, our hearts to be at rest. And so a number of different things that we've done over these weeks has been things that can help our hearts be at peace and be at rest. And so July, we're looking at specific things that chain our hearts and can capture our hearts in a negative way and rob us of freedom. And so July is for freedom. And today specifically, we are talking about breaking free from something that Daniel Amen calls automatic negative thoughts, or ants. And so Daniel Amen is known for research quite a bit, and also for doing brain scans. He does a brain scan on a person who is dealing with anxiety, and a brain scan with a person who is dealing with depression, and brain scan for somebody who's dealing with addiction, and then compares those to brain scans of people that are normal, and notices different brain patterns, and has been very significant in helping understand what's actually happening in the brain in those circumstances. And so one of the things that he has noticed with so many of his clients is that they could be benefited just by changing some of how they think. And specifically, he notices that we automatically start thinking about negative things, and he calls them automatic negative thoughts. He says a whole set of automatic negative thoughts, we get caught up in that. It makes it difficult to make decisions. It lowers our sense of self-worth, how valuable we are. It strains relationships. It can lead towards depression and anxiety. Learning how to, what he calls, stamp out ants, deal with these automatic negative thoughts. As we learn how to do that, it can be, he says, in his clients, it can be as effective as starting to take an antidepressant for either depression or anxiety. And so if you think about this, if you were to pick something that you love doing, pick one of your hobbies or just something that you love doing, maybe it's flying model airplanes or fishing or swing dancing or cooking or whatever it is, just, pick one of those things and just pretend for a second somebody that knows you well decided, you love that so much, I'd love for you to talk to some of my friends about that. And so they gather about 30 people together, and with social distancing, you are there and you're talking about this thing that you love. And you maybe just talk for 10 minutes. And at the end of that time, that friend of yours says, hey, Steve just had a great time sharing with us. Let's give him a little bit of feedback and let him know how what he said impacted you. And so it passes out these 3x5 cards, and every single one of them fills it out, and you get them back. And it's like, wow, I wasn't really expecting that. I just wanted a chance to share something I'm passionate about. And so you go home and you start reading through those cards, and there's a lot of really positive things. I loved your passion, and I loved how excited you were about that one spot, and it's so exciting to see somebody who's so excited about what they're doing, and it made me want to try doing that. And then you get to the last two cards, and one of them says, you said a lot. And the second one says, you kind of lost me. You were a little awkward and confusing at this one spot, and I just didn't tune in the rest of the time. Okay, so 30 pieces of data, where does our brain give its attention? Of course, our brain gives its attention to those 2 pieces of paper with just a few words on them. Lots of ums and a little confusing. And Dr. Amen says, well, there's a reason for that, because our brains are designed to notice where danger is. And our brains perceive the danger in those 2 cards, not in the 28 others. And so one of the things he says is we have to work hard at balancing that out. It doesn't just happen automatically. Automatically what happens is we focus on the negative. We have to actually purposefully work to notice automatic negative thoughts and to work at balancing them. And so it's helpful just to kind of recognize that. There are, he says, about 5 major categories of negative thoughts, and you might recognize your go-tos as we go through this. He says the first one is fortune telling. Fortune telling is the favorite negative thought for someone who is dealing with anxiety, panic disorders. They are the masters of predicting the worst thing that's going to happen, or the worst thing that somebody thinks, or the worst conclusion that could happen. So fortune telling, just kind of recognize that. Another one is mind reading. I know what you're thinking. No, you don't know what I'm thinking unless I tell you what I'm thinking. You might be able to read my facial expression, but even that you might be misunderstanding. One of the biggest challenges in relationships, he says, is this sense of, I know what you're thinking, I'm putting on you what I would be thinking in the same situation, and it might be totally different than what's going on inside of you. The third one is what he calls guilt beatings. I should call my mom, or must, ought to, have to, I better. I should call my mom instead of, I want to see how my mom's doing. And all of those shoulds and ought tos and betters, he says, builds up into this sense of guilt and stuff I'm not doing that I'm supposed to do. Whereas if it's more like, I really would like to see how my mom is doing, then it's an invitation. So we want to take those things that can be guilt beatings and turn them into invitations. Blaming. One of the things that he notices is that if I blame somebody else, automatically I'm putting myself in a victim role. I can't do anything because it's them that did it to me. And so I end up actually becoming impotent to a significant degree of making that change happen. And then the last one that he talks about is labeling. And labeling is that kind of thing that says, oh, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? I stink at speaking. Look, I say all the time. I stink at speaking. And he says when I find myself mad, sad, or nervous, or feeling out of control, it's helpful to challenge those negative thoughts. And he has a system that he's developed, and I just want to take a couple minutes and share this with you. This is something that'll take practice, but if you take a clean sheet of paper and you divide it into these sections, about 6 different sections. And the first one is talking about the situation. I was reading those cards from the talk, so you're wanting to answer in the situation who, what, when, and where, and then what was going on emotionally inside of me. I was reading those cards from the talk, and suddenly, as I was reading those cards, I started feeling shame. And I want to notice the emotions that I was feeling. I was sad, I was feeling shame, and put it on a scale of 0 to 100. 0 is my heart's at rest. 100 is I'm about as disrupted as I can imagine being. And say I was disrupted at an 80. Feeling really, really shameful. I never want to do a talk again. Then he says, okay, so take a look at the automatic negative thoughts. What are all the different things that went through my mind just before I started feeling that? And I started realizing I do say a lot. I don't even notice that I say a lot. Boy, I must really stink at public speaking. I was confusing. Oh no, this person said I was confusing. And so As I was reading those cards, I started feeling all of these different things. And what I want to do once I've written down the different automatic negative thoughts, so he says, go back and circle the one that has the most significant emotional distress to it. He calls that the hot thought. Okay, I am really, really bad at public speaking. I stink at public speaking. And circle that. And then he says, go back and write down the evidence that supports that, because you're not crazy. There is some evidence. And so it would be on that one card, they said I said a lot. And on that other card, they said, well, it was really confusing after this place, you missed me. So I've got some evidence, and I'm recognizing, okay, my brain isn't silly, it's not dumb, it just isn't functioning in a balanced way. I draw a line, and then I start asking the question, what is evidence that does not support that hot thought that I stink as a public speaker? And there would be things like, well, that one person said that it really inspired them to go out and try cooking myself. And this other person who said, I loved the passion that you have for something that I don't even think about lots of times in life. And another one said, next time I cook, I'm going to be thinking about creativity instead of just getting through it so that I can eat. And so there's lots of positive things that were there, but if I don't draw my attention and focus on them on purpose, then I'll lose that, and my automatic thinking will be just towards that automatic negative thought. So that evidence then is there. And then what I want to do is I want to design something called an alternative balanced thought. It starts off even though there were a couple of people who gave negative feedback, maybe constructive feedback. Most really enjoyed my talk, and I had a good time sharing about something that I love. Okay, that's an alternative, balanced thought. It's taking in both the negative and the positive. And so as I work hard at noticing what is that, not just the negative evidence, but also the positive evidence, the things that balance out that negative, and I can focus in on those positive things and write an alternative balanced thought. As I write an alternative balanced thought, I end up noticing that my emotions actually are changed. Instead of feeling 80% disrupted and dealing with shame, I notice this kind of upswelling of confidence and encouragement and a readiness to maybe share again another time about something else that I'm passionate about. And so my negative emotions may have climbed down to, maybe there's still a little bit of, I wish I didn't say that much, and it's about a 20. But other things have started to appear too. And so I've actually regulated my emotions. I've started feeling better, and I'm not just pumping sunshine or making things up. I'm actually helping my brain be balanced on the truth. And I might notice that my mood afterwards has changed from 80% negative to 80% positive. And so it shouldn't probably come as a surprise to us that after all of this research and all the different things that we find in so many different places, that we are directed back to Scripture where the truth is. And in Philippians, we notice that Paul says, finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, and if anything is excellent or anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. Spend your time on those things. Then he says, the things you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice. Practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. So Philippians 4:8 and 9 is just a powerful, powerful verse to help us balance out all of those things that our brains automatically want to go to. Our brains automatically want to go to those negative thoughts, and this is a path of freedom from being captured by those ants, automatic negative thoughts. So I hope you have a great day and a great week working together to stamp out ants. I look forward to catching you next Monday. All right, take care.